welcome to Betfair's preview of the 2023 Women's World Cup. I'm Carly Adno and I'm in Sydney, which is why I'm on the video, and in the Melbourne studio is Katie Lambeski. Katie, this should be fun, a fun discussion to kick things off.
Absolutely, Carly. Nice to meet you today as well. And looking forward to this. Looking forward to the World Cup. It's kind of snuck up on us a little bit, hasn't it? The build-up has been quite exciting, bits and pieces, but now it's becoming oh so real. We saw 50,000 people last Friday night pack out Marvel Stadium for Australia, beating France 1-0 in the maybe a housewarming party rather than like a farewell party type of deal. So yeah, it's exciting times ahead for the game here down under, and it's a major tournament on our shores, which we're very lucky to see. So yeah, looking forward to breaking it all down with you tonight and over the next month or so.
I was really jealous watching that game in Melbourne from Sydney. It looked really incredible. I don't know what's been going on in Melbourne. We're kind of waiting for a bit more hype around Sydney. We haven't seen that much marketing around the World Cup, but we've been promised that this week is the week. What's it been like in Melbourne?
Honestly, it's been quite interesting to see, particularly the lead up last week in the event at Fed Square, excuse me, and the events are starting to just pick that consciousness a little bit. Of course, we have Fed Square, which is kind of the unofficial heart and soul of football in Australia at this point, I think you'd have to say. So, getting a glimpse at the green and gold light up on Flinders Street Station as well is a rather nice touch. It gets you pumped up. But I think for the Sydney perspective, it might be a bit quiet, but I'm sure you 80,000 people this Thursday night against Ireland, I think they're going to make a lot of noise, and I think it's going to bring it into the public consciousness a little bit more. We know, of course, football is not the first choice sport here, but at the same time, there's a deep passion and an underlying passion here, and I think we're going to see that come out, especially on Thursday night and even throughout this month or so. So, yeah, it's a lot to take in, which is going to be even better for us, and I'm sure it's going to deliver a lot of talking points for us as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll be there on Thursday night at the opening game, and I just absolutely cannot wait. I'm planning to get there very early, take in the atmosphere. And I think it's incredible, first off, that match had to be moved to a bigger venue to accommodate an
Yes.
80,000 plus crowd. I mean, this is expected to be probably the biggest women's sporting event that we've ever seen, which is just incredible that it will be happening in Australia.
Absolutely, and if you don't know yet, well, you're going to know. I think for everyone who maybe doesn't follow the game week in, week out, who maybe doesn't know much about football, I think the scenes that you're going to see starting this Thursday, I think it's going to take hold. I really think so. And great idea to get there early as well. Be there, soak in the atmosphere, go off in green and gold. Our team deserves it. The Matildas, the way that they've been performing, particularly the lead into this tournament, has been quite exciting. Some great results in the lead up, so they deserve it. This is a team that we can be proud of. And sorry to reveal a bit of the fan in me there, but the heartbeat's true. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm excited.
So am I, so are we all. Well, let's get into the Matildas team. I mean, they gave a pretty good account of themselves against France and, of course, against England before that. A really good couple of results heading into the World Cup. I think the team that we saw play against France was pretty much bang on the team that we're expected to see for the majority of the tournament. But I think what's been so incredible about this Matilda squad is the depth that's been that's been formed, and that was Tony Gustafsson's biggest task when he took over the role, was to build depth in every single position. He had a really rocky couple of years to begin with, but this honestly looks like a very experienced squad with depth across the park. And I guess that's probably why there's so much hype and hope around this team. The average age of this team is 27, which is bang on the right age for a team, for a bunch of players to be heading into a tournament like this. That's peak age for a tournament like this. But at the same time, it's also the most experienced squad to be heading into a World Cup. And those two things really bode well for the World Cup, I would imagine.
Indeed. We talk about the depth. There's no shortage of options there, as we know. And I know that injuries are a concern which we will address, but at the same time, I think the ethos, or a lot of the noise has been out of the camp is judge us at the right time, judge us at the end of this cycle, see how far this team can go. And this team deserves a chance to stick to it. Has been a team that has stuck together over a period of time. They know each other's games well. Some young, exciting talent flowing through there, Mary Fowler being one of them. It's been a build, and I think that's the way you have to do it over a cycle. I know there's been criticism of Tony Gustafsson, and a lot of it's justified throughout on the journey, but how you prepare and how you get there at the end of the day and how you perform is the end result, is the end game is going to matter the most here. So the depth is going to matter. Looking at even the forward stocks, Caitlin Ford, Mary Fowler, Sam Kerr, Hayley Raso, Kaya Simon as well, who's under a bit of an injury cloud, is under a bit of an injury scare, I think you'd have to say, 8 months post her knee operation. So the depth is key. The depth is key, and I think that's squads win championships, squads win cups, squads win finals, and I think that's what Tony Gustafsson's counting on at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that unbelievable experience that's in this World Cup. We have Sam Kerr, Caitlin Ford, Emily Van Egmond, and Tamika Yallop, who are all playing in their 4th World Cups. In terms of star power, I don't think you can go past Sam Kerr and Caitlin Ford. They've been playing together for so long. They've got a telepathic understanding. If Kerr draws in the defenders, she leaves Caitlin Ford wide open. I just think the two of them, plus you've got the absolute veterans of Lydia Williams and Claire Polkinghorne on the bench. Or not on the bench, I'm assuming. That's being very presumptuous. But just that star power mixed with experience, I guess that's why Australia are being spoken about as a contender to win the title.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, we can either throw in there Ali Carpenter, who's been an absolute star plying her trade in Europe recently. You can throw her name in there. I think, you marry that experience that, Steph Catley undoubtedly brings, Claire Polkinghorne undoubtedly brings, Alex Chidiac and her performances in the A-League Women this season as well. So honestly, Kaya Simon as well is someone, as we refer to, which likely will be coming off the bench and being an impact player throughout the tournament. That's quite an option to have, honestly, and some of her resume speaks for itself. So I think it's relying on allowing those younger players to come in and take a starring role, which I think Mary Fowler is very ripe to come in and do. That goal against France last Friday night was just champagne sort of stuff, that transition football. So that's just a preview of what we have ahead of us. And I think she's been, putting in performances at a good level for some time now in a green and gold shirt, and I'm excited to see what she can truly do. I truly think she can be a breakout star. So lots to look forward to, absolutely.
I think those of us who've seen Mary Fowler play from the very beginning have always assumed that she is going to be a star, and she absolutely is going to be a star. And I think one of the most beautiful things about that goal against France was that it came when Sam Kerr and Caitlin Ford were off the field. So I think all the worry about an over-reliance on Kerr and Ford was kind of alleviated a bit by the fact that Mary Fowler combined so beautifully with Cara Cooney-Cross and Hayley Raso. So, yes. Lots of positives, aren't there?
Absolutely. And I think it's a matter of, at the same time, tailoring the approach about the 3 games. Like, just really, it's not about the first 3 games. It's about building up to the knockouts. I think this team has the undoubted potential to make the knockouts and really beat that. Really find it's. I don't know if they win it. Honestly, I don't know. They're not a favourite, but they're a contender, this Matildas team. So looking at ultimately, I think there's some classy European opposition in there. The US are in there, but at the same time, this team has what it takes to at least get to the semi-finals. Up to there, it's really up to fate. It's really up to a lot of luck in knockout football, as we know. So it comes down to those one-off moments. It comes down to that bit of play. Knockout football is where it's truly at. It is cutthroat. It can break your heart, and it could also be an opportunity for a player to really stand up and take a name for itself. So I think this team has what it takes to make that Final Four at the very least, in my opinion.
Completely. I completely agree. But I guess moving forward from that, let's look at the group that they're in and our predictions for Group B. I can't go past Australia and Canada finishing 1 and 2, and I don't think anyone would really expect to see a huge upset in the group, whether it's Australia 1 and Canada 2 or the other way around. I guess remains to be seen. But I guess a lot of it depends on Australia's opening game against Ireland. I mean, 80,000 people, unbelievable crowd support, but also pressure. Opening game, it can really go either way. If they start with a bang and get off to a winning start, they could easily top the group. If they draw or lose the opening game, then it's a little bit more pressure, a little bit harder, I would say.
Sure, just those doubts start to creep into the mind a little bit more, can leave you second guessing yourself, particularly if coming off such a high, walking out to 80,000 people, to somehow not win, to draw or lose that game, that can be a deflating experience. I do think this team is made of stronger, sterner type of material, though, as we know, that never say die ethos, that never say die mentality. Ultimately, Ireland, look, 22nd ranked in the world, I think, at the moment. They're going to be tricky. I think they're defensively sound. I think they're going to look for 5 at the back with 2 midfielders almost as a screen, not necessarily end-to-end, box-to-box sort of midfielders. So I think they might be a tricky proposition. Let's not make a mistake about that. I do think Australia win. That's, if you want to tip, well, I think they get it done. But the Irish, led by Kate McCabe, of course, who's 27 years old herself, plying her trade with Arsenal over in England in their prime, 100%. And I think she'll line up at left wing back. I believe she will, start there. So I think they're going to be a tricky proposition. I do think Australia have enough to get it done at the end of the day. It might be narrow, it might be a few nervy moments, but I think Australia start off on the right foot, and that game they'll lead into the game against Canada in Melbourne. So that will be, I think, the match of the group stage. Anyway, I think that determines who finishes first, in my opinion. Yeah.
I'm also glad you brought up McCabe, because as an Arsenal fan, I love to talk about Arsenal. And of course, she'll know a few of the Matildas players pretty well also. But McCabe had a huge season for Arsenal. She made the Champions League team of the season. So she's really a dangerous prospect, an incredibly talented and experienced player. They also have a very experienced coach in Vera Pauw, who is quite controversial. Yes. She's very, very forthright with her words, with her expectations. But it does seem like this Irish side has got right behind her. She has plenty of experience in these big tournaments.
Yeah, undoubtedly. So she's, a former Dutch international in her own right, teammate of Serena Wiegman as well, the England manager. So she's no stranger to the rough and tumble of the game. She speaks their mind, someone who I think has a lot of experiences in the game, as we know that. So I think the team has bought into what she has instilled within the group, and at the point when you get teams at a point who are willing to run through walls for their coach, you think twice about that team. They do make you think. They do bring that intensity. So I think with that sort of leadership, with that sort of quality that McCabe undoubtedly brings, Sinead Farrelly as well, who's also an interesting story. Yeah, 100%. 33-year-old midfielder, spending 8 years out of the game, only returning in March 2023, sustained back and neck injuries in a car accident. I mean, I can't help but root for that sort of story. And, I don't wish her too much luck against us. There's my bias again, excuse me. But I think that's someone I want to see do well. So big ups to Sinead Farrelly as well.
Yeah, I mean, her story is incredible. That car crash in 2015, but then obviously, she came out and spoke about reported sexual harassment when she was at Portland Thorns by the coach at the time. So yeah, an incredible story. And it seems like this World Cup is kind of littered with amazing stories and comebacks. And that's why it's just, there's so many layers to this World Cup. Very exciting stuff.
Undoubtedly, undoubtedly, and I mean, that I think that almost leads into Canada, who coming into this are going to be 7th ranked in the world, winners of Tokyo Olympics in Tokyo 2020, but 2021 as we know, in their 8th World Cup, no stranger to this sort of stage, have their own experienced hand in Bev Priestman at the helm. Again, average age similar to the Matildas, 27 years old. I mean, I have them as the dark horse in this. I have them, they can upset anyone, I think, on their day. They'll look to, again, first or second, depending on how that second game shakes out with Australia. I think they have the players in Christine Sinclair, who has an unbelievable record in her own right. Have Ashley Lawrence in there as well, who's made a name for herself in Europe for a long, long time. Goal scoring clout in Evelyn Viens as well. So this is a tricky proposition. I think that's underselling it somewhat. So it's going to get, again, the challenges are going to come for Australia in the first 2 games, excuse me.
I mean, I've been reading a lot of articles about it, and so many people have Canada as a contender because of that Olympic performance. And I guess because what's interesting is Bev Priestman, the coach, she's 37. The best player, Christine Sinclair, as you mentioned, is playing in her 6th World Cup at the age of 40, which is incredible. She scored 190 goals, which is more than any other player in history, men or women. She's an absolute force, and it's not hard to see why so many people are picking Canada to go pretty far in this competition.
100%. And she, Christine Sinclair, 300 international games. That's a wealth of experience, and you put that together with the phenomenal strike rate, as you mentioned, the 190 goals. This is not a team that's not going to take anything lying down. They're going to back themselves in technique-wise. They're going to back in their young talent in Simia Wujo as well, who's only 19, someone who's very technically adept, comfortable going box to box, has the passing range to back that up as well. So there's no shortage of options there, I think, for Canada. So run of form is a little bit dicey, if you will. They've lost 2-1 to France in a friendly recently. Had a record in the She Believes Cup as well, which is their most recent, I think, tournament, if you will. 3-0 loss to Japan, 2-0 win over Brazil, and 2-0 loss to the US, their neighbour to the north, of course. So form's a little bit up and down. Not a lot to go off in terms of recent run of form, but expect them to be a tricky proposition nevertheless.
I mean, they're one of quite a few teams in the tournament who've been having issues with their federation in the background, which may have contributed to their form leading up. They've come out quite categorically to say it's not going to affect them this World Cup, but there have been a few off-field dramas, and I guess that leads us on to the final team in this group, which is Nigeria, and they've also had plenty of disputes with their federation in the background, and it's kind of hard to see them moving past that altogether, because even their coach Randy Waldrum, he's really under fire for comments he's made about the federation. He's accused them of not paying the players, he's accused them of not paying him, and many are not expecting him to hang around for too much longer in that position. So Nigeria, one of the teams really beset by off-field problems against their federation.
And it's funny how that can work. It can either be a galvanizing sort of force, it can bring that sort of no one believes in us sort of mentality that can really galvanize a team. I mean, look at Croatia and what they did in the Men's World Cup in recent times as well. So, look, I think they have, a squad who's led by Asisat Joshua as well, who's going to be their key driver, their best player, I think you have to say. So she's also a Women's Champions League winner with Barcelona. So quite the resume, I think. But again, in a tournament football, 3 games, nothing to lose sort of attitude, mentality coming in. I think that's a tricky opponent. Nevertheless, they might not have had the run up that they want, and I think that matters in certain aspects. But coming good at the right time, I think is going to be the key. And I think that's what backs them in. I think that's how they'll come in to this World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, as is that first African nominated for the Ballon d'Or, 90 goals in 96 games for Barcelona. That's incredible. That's almost Sam Kerr-like. But yeah, unbelievably, despite their low ranking in this group, they're only ranked 40. They have featured in every single Women's World Cup to date. So they actually have the most experience and one of the best records in the World Cup. Whenever you think of Nigeria, you do think of a World Cup powerhouse, even with the men's side. So despite the fact, as you mentioned, that they've had a bit of drama off the field, you can never really write them off.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, it can be a galvanizing force. I mean, this is a team that's also won 11 African Cup of Nations as well. So that's nothing to take lightly. I mean, their best result, I think, is a quarter-final back in 1999. So again, it's going to be, again, a lot's against them. I think a lot against them is publicly. It's gone publicly, of course, as we know. But, this team may trip people up, like they've done over my words just there. But it's a 4-3-3 formation that they'll line up in. They'll go, I guess, depending on how that midfield takes shape, they might want to be as compact as possible, not allow much space between the lines, particularly against teams who can get on the transition like Australia, who can really hurt on the transition like Australia can. So again, keeping it tight, I think, is the key for them, keeping it tight for long parts of the game. Maintaining possession, not being tidy in possession, no loose passes. I think if they bring that sort of approach, they might. I don't expect them to get out of the group. I have to say that. I don't think they do, but they're not going to be easy beats. They're not just going to be a layover. So interesting to see how they perform, of course.
So I'm going Australia first, Canada second, Ireland third, Nigeria fourth in the group.
I'll second that. I think it's that's on point. I mean, small margins at the top between Australia and Canada, but that's about right heading into the knockouts.
Let's talk about the overall favorites of the competition. So obviously we have the USA, who are back-to-back champions and could become the first team to win a third in a row, which, no one would put it past them. They're that good. My favorites for the tournament, I'm going to go with England. I think they're European champions. Despite the fact that they have quite a lot of injuries, they have had quite a lot of injuries, they just have an embarrassment of riches, especially in front of goal. They have the experience now, and I think that they're hot favorites to win. And after that, I'm going to say USA and Germany.
I'm going to second that, but I honestly think it's England. I'm going to second that on England with you, but I also think Spain and the US are right in the thick of it as well. I think they have absolute quality just across the board, up and down their squads. Lots of experience and inspired Megan Rapinoe in her final tournament, in her last dance, if you will. I think with her as charismatic as she is, as someone who, let's face it, is quite cocky, but it's what you love in an athlete from every now and then. I think she's going to be very interesting in her swan song too, how she performs. But back on England, I mean, ultimately, Leah Williamson, Fran Kirby, Beth Mead, all missing out this tournament just with that all too common scourge in the women's game, with knee injuries, with ACL injuries, really crueling their opportunities in this tournament, which are, thoughts with them. It's not nice to see the best players miss the World Cup. You want to see the best players on the biggest stage shine and give their all, and they're not going to do that. That's going to somewhat hurt England's chances, yes, but I think there's the undoubted quality. Alessia Russo, as well, someone who is an exciting talent in their own right. 11 goals in 21 international appearances, has had a breakout season with Manchester United over in the league there. So they're well led. Serena Wiegman, as we've alluded to earlier, Rachel Daly, who I can consider probably a golden boot contender, depending on how far England can go.
Yes, she's mine.
Yeah.
She's coming off a prolific season. My goodness, Aston Villa, 22 goals in the season. Yeah, I actually put her as my golden boot. It was a close call between her and Sam Kerr. What about you? What are you going with golden boot?
Geez, this is a tough one because in the sense that a lot depends on how far the teams can go ultimately. But yeah, I have Sophia Smith. I rate as a chance. Pop for Germany as well. I have her as a contender. But I'm going to go, given the fact that I see Australia going to the semi-finals in this tournament, I'm going to back in Sam Kerr. Big time Sam, big time player, big match Sam. I can't wait to see her on the main stage in Australia at home. I think she's going to be inspired, and I think she takes it out. But Rachel Daly will be a close second. I think for an outsider, maybe you go for France. I think you got Kadidiatou Diani, 30 goals for Paris Saint-Germain, of course, in season 2023. That's quite the record. We talk about players getting it done in Europe. She's a dark horse, depending on how far France can go, of course.
Dark horses. So many people are predicting France to be a dark horse. I've gone with the number 10 ranked team is my dark horse, is Australia. I think the Matildas are definitely the dark horse for this tournament. I mean, yes, they're ranked 10, but we can talk about so many of those players were in England when the Lionesses won Euros, and they saw how they dealt with that pressure at home. They saw the impact it had at home, and I think it's made a big impression on them. And I think they'll know how to deal with the pressure. Because so many of them play in Europe, they've been exposed to such big crowds all season for seasons and seasons. And I think that the home crowd will push them rather than add pressure on them. And I just think that they're peaking at exactly the right time. There's so many reasons why Australia can win this World Cup. They always punch above their weight in World Cups, and that goes for the men's side also. And yeah, wouldn't that be unbelievable? So they're my dark horse, and I can totally see them doing it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I'm confident. I know I said it's going to be a tricky prospect, right? We know that the heart of the game is in Europe. We know the heart of the game in the women's side of things anyway is in Europe and in the US. So seeing our national team, particularly our players, go over to Europe, make a name for themselves, and really push, like Hayley Raso, oh my God, Real Madrid, and move to Real Madrid as well. So we're really producing players who are getting it done at the top leagues in the world, and that's different from the men's side of things. I have to say, like we have men's players who are punching above their weight, who are competing at some pretty high levels in Europe still, but Sam Kerr is almost the Messi, Ronaldo of the women's game a little bit. I think she's right up in there in that conversation. I think so. If I had to explain it to someone who doesn't follow the game, everyone knows Messi and Ronaldo. Well, Sam Kerr, I think, is right up there in terms of the women's side of it. She's someone who's scores for fun, has absolutely built a track record over the years. I think she's right up there. I think we have players who have been exposed to the top levels, and I think that's what leaves them in a really, really good place heading into this. I mean, even if you look into the recent run of form, not to read too much into it, but 9 of their past 10 games, again, against wins, are all wins, including victories over Sweden, England, Spain, and now France. So that's not a record to sneeze at. They've come in against tough opposition, so they're hardened, not just at an international level, but at the club level too. So semi-finals, for me, is the call. The rest is up to luck, and the rest is up to moments at key moments at certain times, and making those moments count when they inevitably do come in those big matches. So, I think England, Spain. I have, to be honest, the last 4 I have is Spain, USA, England, and Australia as the last 4, and Spain and England in the final.
Right. So similar.
Wow.
England, Germany, USA, Australia.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know if that's possible with the draw, but that was the way I was looking at it. I mean, you mentioned Sam Kerr. Like Sam has something like five FA Cup final goals in 3 FA Cup finals. If that's not a sign of a big match player, wow. And it's what's interesting is that whole team's been running out this message about pressure being a privilege. I think that's something they've
Yes.
discussed quite a lot within the team, and I think they've taken that on board. So, wow, let's see how it plays out. Let's go into our outsiders though, because they're always
Yes.
those teams that could spring a massive surprise and often do. For my outsiders, I've gone with Brazil,
Yep.
mainly because of Marta, France, and Sweden.
Uh,
Sweden have had a really good record in the World Cup. They've always been there or thereabouts. They've got a really strong team going into this World Cup, also peaking at the right time. So, yeah, those are my outsiders. What about yours?
I'm leaning toward Norway and Japan. I mean, Norway, particularly through Ada Hegerberg as well, who's someone I think who's really. I think she was one of the world's best at a certain time. She hasn't had. I think injuries have been quite cruel to her over recent seasons. Hasn't had a clear run throughout the cycle, but at the same time, coming into this tournament, I think she's going to be inspired. I think she's still one of the world's best, and I think she leads. I think she leads. Will lead that team. Will drive that team on. So interesting to see how she can perform at the right time as well. I do like that call on Brazil as well. Marta particularly is someone I'm super excited about. Someone who's going to come here live and in living colour in front of our audiences. I think the last, 100%, the last chance at her last World Cup, her last ride as well. I can't wait to see what she produces, and I hope that everyone who gets out to a game particularly enjoys seeing her in action. I think she's been a superstar for a very long time, an elite player, and I look forward to really seeing what she can bring here in 2023 World Cup. So I do like that call around Brazil especially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just what the most amazing thing about this World Cup is it's just so hard to call.
yeah.
And that's beautiful. Like it could just go to it wouldn't be a shock. Any of those teams we've spoken about, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if they went on to win it. It's just open, it's exciting. The crowds are going to be incredible, and I think we're in for an amazing ride. And I look forward to looking back at this discussion in a few weeks' time to see what has eventuated and what hasn't.
Don't hold me to any of these calls, please. That's anyone listening as well. No. No, feel free to clip it. Feel free to have fun and Instagram me or at me on Threads. Have fun with it. We'll enjoy this. We'll enjoy this with you all. It's going to be good fun, man. Put your calls out there as well. Everyone tuning in, get involved, get it to the games if you're down here. It's exciting times. Exciting times. Hundreds of thousands, almost like 100,000 people coming down here, touring Australia, coming through the country to follow the World Cup. That's amazing. That's amazing. Maybe the mainstream hasn't caught that just yet, but I think we're going to over this next month. Absolutely. So I look forward to catching it all with you.
Yeah, and I have to say I feel incredibly lucky that this is my second World Cup in my home country. The first one was when I was still in South Africa in 2010, and the build-up and the experience was just incredible. So I feel very lucky to experience it in my new adopted home country of Australia. And hopefully the Matildas do a bit better than South Africa did in 2010.
Look, ultimately, safe bet, but at the same time, I think ultimately from my end, 2015 Asian Cup was the one I can really compare this to. You're very lucky, I think, as a fan to experience a major international tournament, particularly in your lifetime. So I don't want anyone, taking this for granted. Get involved. Buy the merchandise, get out to games, get tickets. I still think there's some available throughout the FIFA website as well. not likely for the Matildas games, mind you, but yeah, get out and enjoy the game. Any game, really get yourself out there, support the game, support this tournament, because it's going to be fantastic to watch. It's going to be a great experience, and yeah, everyone get around it.
What Katie said. Katie, I look forward to chatting to you in a week or so to see how the beginning week of the tournament has gone. So don't forget to tune in again to see how things have progressed.
Likewise, absolute pleasure being with you today, Carly, and looking forward to bringing this with you over the next month or so. So much appreciate you joining me, and yeah, thank you so very much. Pleasure to meet you today.
You too, likewise. Thanks, Katie.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.